Hello everyone, I'm Grandmaster Denes Boros, and today I am going to continue the Ruy Lopez Gambit series. This is the second edition. So let's get into it. So this game has been played between Anna Muzychuk versus Zhukova. Zhukova is a chess grandmaster just as Anna Muzychuk, and of course you know the Muzychuk sisters. If not, well, you should get to know her, and now you're going to get to know her style as well. So earlier in the previous video, I talked about the line a6, bishop a4, knight f6, d4, e takes castles, which leads to very nice compensation where we discussed bishop e7 or rook e1. For that video, you should check it out because we're going to have a similar one. So Muzychuk this time is facing the Berlin defense, which is very topical. You may be wondering, okay, this is the Berlin defense. Is it possible to play a gambit against the Berlin? Yes, the answer is yes. And in fact, Anna Muzychuk played d4, giving up and sacrificing the pawn. He takes d4, castles. So what's the idea behind this pawn sacrifice? Well, white is giving up a pawn, but frees up these squares, mostly the e5, and the knight will be a direct target. Bishop e7 played by Zhukova, prudently avoiding taking the pawn on e4, and rightfully so. Bishop e7 is the best move. Knight takes e4 is a mistake, by the way. Because of rook e1, you get pinned. d5, knight takes d4. And that sets up a double threat. You are pinned, and there's pressure on the pin piece, not to mention that there is this threat of f3 trying to take that knight. Here, black could try bishop d6, but white can take this. Bishop takes h2. Now, if pawn takes, bishop takes, and you either lose that or you lose the d pawn. In both cases, black is lost. So, black has to resort to takes, bishop takes h2 check. And here, white has to be very careful. King h1 is the move. If king takes h2, there's queen h4 check, queen takes f2, and a repetition of moves, because there's no way out of that circle. So king h1, queen h4. And seemingly the position is dire for white, but it's actually not so. So I do advise you to stop, pause the video now, and just ponder a little bit. This is the situation where actually white has a brilliant retort to black's audacious attack on the white king. So do take your little time, ponder if you can find the solution. There's plenty of moves here that white can do, but only one really cuts through and actually gives a huge advantage for the white player. The move is rook takes e4 check. Now, there is no bishop e5 blocking because the queen would fall. And there is no queen takes e4 due to king takes h2. And if you take here, bishop takes and you lose the rook in the corner. Therefore, the only legitimate move here is d takes e4. And now white can play this astounding move of queen d8 check. You must capture, there's no other legal move. Knight takes d8, king takes d8, king takes h2, and this actually leads to an advantage for white, as white has two pieces versus the rook, which favors the side with the light pieces of the knight and bishop. So knight takes e4 is actually not possible in this variation due to this rook e1, knight takes d4 sequence. So Zhukova decided, rightfully so, to go for bishop e7, e5, knight e4, knight takes d4. Now, if you're not a big fan of conservative play, you can also try rook e1, which is also an interesting idea. And after knight c5, go for c3 and try to get counterplayed this way. This is a true gambit. White would give up a pawn, but for that sacrificed pawn, she'd get a full control of the center while black's pieces are still in the garage waiting to get activated. And this is another way of playing. It's a bit more tactical, and it does have some risk involved, as white is giving up a pawn for this huge center advantage. Now in this game, Anna Muzychuk the sister of the world champion Maria Muzychuk, decided to go for knight takes d4. Now obviously, black cannot take to e5 because rook e1, you can't defend with d5, you're pinned, and you can't really go f5 either. Well, one, it would weaken the death valley of chess. Two, white can just simply take, and there will be a totem pole of pieces, all of them about to fall. So instead, knight takes d4, Zhukova decided to take, queen takes, knight c5, knight c3. Same old plan, trying to get that knight towards the center and maybe get the bishop there. So Zhukova decided to go knight e6, queen g4, immediately putting pressure on the g7 pawn, and if cancels, you could consider ideas such as bishop d3, eyeing that sniper on this h7 pawn, and set up bishop h6 with pressure on the king. So Zhukova, not really liking that, played h5, queen e2, c6, bishop c4, eyeing the e6 pawn and controlling these squares, d5. Now this is that moment where you have to realize, yep, my opponent is trying to close it down. Would that favor us? Not really, because our king is actually castled while our opponent is still in the center. So here it makes a lot of sense to take here. En passant, queen takes d6, knight e4. Putting pressure on the queen and exerting some x-ray pressure as well on that king on e8. Queen c7, and this next move by Anna Muzychuk is very bright and creative. She comes up with this move of knight g5, not only putting some pseudo pressure on the f7 pawn, but also trying to bring on the pieces into the attack while Zhukova's king is still in the center. Well, she decides to take on g5, bishop takes g5, but that's already kind of showing that the situation is dire. Black doesn't have time to castle due to this move of queen takes c7, and of course if you take, you are just a piece down. So instead, Zhukova goes bishop e6, bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, rook e1. Notice that every move Anna Muzychuk makes is for pressure. So rook e1, not only a developing move, it is putting immediate pressure on the e6 square and indirectly on the king on e6. Obviously, bishop takes c4 would be a mistake because of queen e7 checkmate. So rook h8, rook h8 to rook h6, queen e5, king f8, rook e4. You don't see a new plan? Well, just bring in that rook on a1. Queen f6, do we want to trade? Well, in general, trade favors the side who has less development or the pieces are crooked, so it's much better for white to keep the pieces on the board. So naturally, she decides to go queen c5. King g8, takes, c3. And now you can see how grandmasters actually transform their advantages. Here, Anna Muzychuk decides to give up on mating Zhukova's king, but decides to put pressure positionally instead. Because look at those pawns. They're all scattered around the king side, not really protecting each other, and the e6 one, on the other hand, is going to be an easy target. Rook d8, trying to get some activity, but she is giving up a free pawn on a7. Rook d2, rook b4. Consolidating, over defending all those squares that Zhukova would go after. Queen a7, rook d2, rook b4, rook g6, queen e3. Attacking the rook and bringing the queen back. Still some things to be done for Anna Muzychuk. She is trying to over-defend and maybe in the future needs to create a little bit of a luft for her king. Rook d7, rook e1. Bringing the rook on in and sort of closing down ideas of potentially attacking that king on g1. Queen f5, rook e4. Again, fortifying, building some sort of Alyahin's gun on the e6 pawn. Rook f7, g3, and here comes the luft. Now she'll never have to worry about any sort of back ranks. Rook f6, king g2, just slowly moving forward. Queen d5, trying to pin, but Anna says no, that's not gonna happen. b3, rook e5, queen c2, rook e2, rook d2, queen g4, and this is the moment when it seems, well, there is some play for Zhukova, but unfortunately for her, In the middle of the board, queen on g4 is trapped. It can't go anywhere. It is all attacked by the rooks, and we have these other squares fortified by Anna Muzychuk's pieces. So after rook d4, Zhukova resigned. So I really hope you enjoyed this video on the d4 gambit against the Berlin. And of course, you can take a look at the previous one where I discuss what to do and how to do a very similar gambit if they go a6 instead of the Berlin. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any ideas, any comments, do post it down below. Love to see it and hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.